job of putting it all together. There was a lot of discussion too about the metrics and the measurements and how do you measure those successes. Well, I know for sure that we have been successful, Advantage Hope has been successful, the District of Hope has been. And it's such a tough thing to put in numbers, but I think this addresses a bit more than the last plan did. And I think that's one of the best things that's come out of this update is a way of, and the business walks is a great idea, of coming up with some sort of measurements that we can really discuss internal successes within the group, right? The other thing that I learned from this whole process is that we've done a very good job of following the plan. It's not a step-by-step, step one, step two, step three type of plan, but we've done a pretty good job of keeping on track, and I think that is a measurement of success right there. And the only downside to what we've done through so far, I think, has been the public process, public input was lacking. I don't know why. There was a lot of public input in the previous plan, and I don't know what was different then than now, but sometimes you don't get those people coming out because they're not angry, they're okay with everything. And you kind of have to believe that, I think. And I think it's a great idea to put this on the website. You're asking for some direction. I think that's a good idea. I'm sure it'll get out there that it's available. People can take a look at this and provide comment again. And the other thing I want to mention about this is it's great to have all these other lofty ideas, but we have to be quite realistic and see what is actually attainable in the next 5 years based on our staffing levels, funding that we put into this program. It's not an endless pot of money. There's only so much staff. They're excellent staff, but there's only so much we can do. So we have to be realistic and we have to be focused, or we spin our wheels and get nothing done. So once again, it was a fun part, being part of the process. I'm glad that I got to be there. It's not over. It's an ongoing thing. This is always going to be a living document that we're always looking at. So those are my comments. I think it's been a good thing. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Miller, Councilor Erickson, and Councilor Crowe.
Through you, Mayor. I just have a couple questions regarding this. Public input, I wrote down here. How many people were at the public input meeting from the public?
I'm not positive, I think the number was about 18.
18 from the public?
18 people were in total.
In total, but that's including Vantage Hope
It
and
didn't
Chamber
include
of-
me. I don't know if it included you. It did include,
I'm talking about people who were not involved with Vantage Hope
yeah,
or Chamber, not involved with this group.
Currently, maybe 6 or
Yeah.
7 of them. That had
But before,
connection.
yeah, before you had, like, was it not advertised out?
it was advertised.
It was, just in the paper once?
It was in the paper and it was also advertised through our social media avenues.
Did you-
I don't think it was ever advertised through the chamber, but it was advertised through the membership.
Because, I mean, this is a tremendously nice document. I mean, it's a lot of hard work put into it. But I would have really liked to have seen a lot more public put into it. Because there were, and I think if it goes out to the public, now we get quite a few comments.
Yeah, one thing that we did try to do to sort of squeeze a little bit more public input was with that, there are several of us that are involved in the process that are also involved in the OCP update process. And there's been quite a substantial effort to go out with that process to get public input. And so we've reviewed all of that public input as well as part of this process. So although it wasn't requested specifically for the economic development update, of course, much of that input does relate to economic development strategies. So we did try to look at what the community was saying, however they're able to say it.
Okay, my other question, over the last 5 years, the district has put in about $800,000 into this process. $800,000. So the taxpayers have to are realizing, what are we getting for the $800,000? And so, I think that's why I would have really liked to have seen a lot more public input, and maybe advertise better, or somehow got more public response. $800,000 is a lot of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
And looks like you may be wanting more for the future. As I was reading the document through it, kind of left an Economic Development, acting as a front counter for all inquiries coming to the District of Hope regarding new business and investment opportunities. That is the key for Advantage Hope. And if it's not doing that, then our $800,000 is not being put to the best use. And that's just my comment.
Councilor,
Please finish your council questions, Your Worship.
yeah, okay.
Good idea.
Councilor Erickson, Councilor Brand.
Done?
Yeah.
Thanks. So thank you very much. It was nice to see the references to the 2009 original document. So that was really great. It was a great starting point. Thank you for the comments of my inquiries, of which started this off. I'm sure that it would have happened with or without my comments, but anyhow. Basically, I'm in favor of Advantage Hope. I like the document. I like to see some of the improvements that are coming for the wish list for the community. A lot of it is, in my opinion anyhow, beautification as opposed to nuts and bolts, I guess. So I saw a lot of things that can happen that will make us attractive, which we need to do, of course. Everybody has to put on their jewelry. So that's all good. I like all that stuff. It's also stuff that comes in stages as money comes and new development comes and all that stuff. We know that. As Councillor Medlock alluded to, this is a living document. So it starts off at 2009 and then it gets to 2015 and it's changed somewhat. And it's all dependent on the players at the table every time. It's not dependent on what council's direction is, because council isn't directing this show. The players from council are going, and once in a while we hear back, and this report is very important because it's a kind of a marker as to where you're at right now for myself. And so, something that I am going to talk about again, and I'm not going to be like Councillor Dybel, but I will discuss a couple of comments that I have been thinking about and that the community talks about. And it kind of relates to what Councillor Erickson says, and that is, when you put my tax dollars out, I wanna see what I'm getting. I wanna see what I'm paying for. And that's a fact. Regardless of all the good stuff that's being checked off, at the end of the day, when this thing was at its inception, I believe that we intended to have some sustainable jobs, much like Nestle's, and those kinds of jobs where they would be perpetuating sustainability in the community for the future. And, you know, I've talked about this before, it's not new comments, so I hope I'm not bombarding you with that, but anyhow. So, and I know that everybody that's involved, those are the people that are making the decisions. If you don't take the other feedback and you don't hear about the other feedback, you may or may not know about what the rest of the community is really thinking. I know that 18 people is a good starting point, but again, there's a lot of talk about it all the time. It's not negative talk, it's a wish list of where the community wants to go. Maybe not necessarily just where the board members sitting there want to go, but what other people outside of them that are paying for the project also want as well. And so what I'm thinking is that at the end of the day, if I saw that in year 5, this is what we have as expectations, some real hardcore projects that we expected to be done and accomplished, I'd be all for it. I'd be constantly going, hey, yay, go, let's put some money into that. But if I can see some kind of basic overviews of the matrix of where we could be or could go, but there's nothing substantial there in terms of real projects, it's a little more difficult to say to the community, yes, this is what we are spending our money on and this is what we want to do. So it's a little tougher. I like the fact that there's such great people working on the team. I think that that's awesome. I have no problem with that. So far, we've been around for about 6 years, right? So we've been growing the basis of where we're working from and kind of looking to where we're going, and it all looks good. But overall, at the end of the day, my very own support of Advantage Hope, long before it ever got the inception, was because I knew we needed jobs and hope, and that was it. And as a counselor, that's what I want to see, is jobs and hope for our community. Whether they're low-paying jobs or high-paying jobs, I don't care, I want jobs in Hope. Preferably high-paying jobs, but what we can do is what we should be doing. I want to see, the, plans happen for a industrial park, but I'm learning that I don't have to see them right in the District of Hope. They could be in between Laidlaw and Hope, they could be between Boston Bar and Hope. They could still be jobs to support the District of Hope, because those are bedroom communities to Hope. So for me, those are all potential areas that we can work in together. And I think that we need to spend a little bit of critical time developing our relationships in our community. Like Councillor Dowell alluded to, there's some issues where if there's things broken in some places, they need to be fixed. And in order to do that, we need to get the buy-in from all those groups. In your document, you talked about that diversity and how you wanted to kind of bring those people in. But the very most important players are already trying to come to the table, and they're not being heard, from what I understand. And I don't want to really know the details, because I am not at those meetings, so that's not my job. But I want to make sure that if that's part of the issue, that's pretty easy to fix. So I just wanna throw that out there for you now, because I want to endorse your document, I want you to go forward with it, but I want it to be successful if I'm going to endorse it. So, the point is, I guess, basically, is if you guys are going forward, I hope that you do some task force of different people on your board, and you actually go and really target 300 outside businesses for 2 years and get 5 of them in Hope. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a task force set up with somebody from the chamber, somebody from Advantage Hope, and somebody from Skills, and whoever wants to be on board. Get a group and get all their best attributes and get them out there and do some work for you. But get something concrete at the end of the time. That's what I'd like to see.
Thank you, Councillor Crowe. So, that we have some clarity moving forward, is it the agreement of council that this should be posted on the website to get public input? Yeah.
Your worship, if I can suggest staff recommendation, and I think Advantage Hope would agree, that with this draft document now being created as a whole, that we put it out, like you say, I think that we should have a public consultation meeting, an information
Oh,
session.
absolutely, yeah.
And I think we should try to schedule that to keep things timely, and looking at all our calendars, somewhere in that week of November 11th, maybe the 12th or Thursday, somewhere in there, so that we can have the stakeholders take a look at the document, the public take a look at the document, and then obviously come to the info session, bring their suggestions, their thoughts, all the rest of that. And that gives Advantage Hope and staff here some time to, some quick time to look at the input and recommend if we should change, include, or exclude something in the draft document, and then come back to council. In this case, it would be November 23rd for council endorsement of the document after we discuss any other changes that we would recommend to you for your consideration.
So for folks that choose to participate, read it online when we post it, we should maybe post their final, if they want to put a written submission towards council and staff, we should make sure we have an end date on that. And what is the end date on that, I guess is the question.
Your worship, I would suggest the end date on that be the night before the public information session. And I think we can work with Advantage Hope and council and others to try to get that date. Once we get the information session date, we can just back up the cutoff time for public information. We'd also put it out at the desk in hard copy for those that don't use computers, and make it as easy to get to as possible.
Okay, well, that sounds like low-hanging fruit. Now, the other thing that I think is, and this is tying into Councillor Crawford and Councillor Erickson's comments about communication with the public and value for dollar and all those. And I'd just like to reference our previous discussion on the fact that we're going to have quarterly reports from Advantage Hope now. It's probably best to do those during the committee of the whole meeting, so that we have a full, say, half hour to really beat it to death, so to speak. And within a half hour, we should have a fair bit of, and it's a first public meeting, lots of opportunity for the public to listen and partake in discussions, so that is something we've already agreed to, that we'll have those quarterly meetings, which did and didn't take place in the past, so for whatever reason, busyness of folks involved. So we've already identified that as an opportunity to communicate closely with the community, so that'll help. Councilor Miller?
Just like to make one more comment around the public participation sort of point. I think it's important to remember that Advantage Hope's board of directors, well, everybody, including staff, are members of this community. They all have input, and they have their own circles of friends, and that's why the board is formed the way it was, so that it's not bureaucratic, I don't know what the right word is, but, I think that's an important point to remember. It's not like the public isn't being consulted on a monthly basis at meetings or more than that. I think we kind of forget that sometimes, that everybody that sits on the board of directors lives in this community. They volunteer their time because they want to see the successes of the community. So I think that's top of mind right now for me. But I would like to see, more people participate, more or less, so that they feel included and heard. Not just feel included, but they are included and heard. Yeah.
Good. Good. Councilor Erickson?
Is 2 weeks too short by the 11th for this, to get out and response back? Do we need to rush it?
Your worship, the document will be put up immediately, like tomorrow morning, and we will confirm as quickly as possible with you, Advantage Hope, and staff, as we want to schedule us. Ideally, I think that second week in November. That's 2 weeks to review the document and make comment. The problem with public input sometimes is it becomes stale because the timeline's pushed up too far and people lose focus. If there's a short time frame or a sort of not limited time frame, people will take the action they feel they need to take for the input. Respect.
Sounds good.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I would just like to suggest that if it's, councils wish to see more public consultation, I think that Councillor Medlock made a good point. I think, that if we put the draft out and, I think Advantage Hope has done, I'm obviously biased, but I think that Advantage Hope has done a good job with engaging with the community, and that we've got a lot of people following what's happening with Advantage Hope these days. I think a lot of those people are very supportive of what they see in Advantage Hope. And so if the document goes out and people generally like what they see, I don't think that they're gonna be well inclined to show up to a public consultation session, which would give the illusion that they don't have input, or that there hasn't been a lot of input gathered. So in order to maybe maximize participation in that and to make it the most valuable as possible, I think anybody that's reviewed the document understands that it's the document doesn't drill down to individual kind of tasks. Like, I mean, it identifies some strategies, but it doesn't go into like the actual work plan level. And what the next step logically would be after this economic development strategy update is adopted would be Advantage Hope's next move to immediately flip into figuring out what the 2016 work plan looks like. And so if we did the public consultation in a way that that sought to wrap up this work, or the strategy, it might also be an opportunity for Advantage Hope to use that as a session for public input to try to help distill the next work plan as well. And then so it comes down to more prioritizing this document for 2016. This covers a longer period of time, but people, even people that are supportive then could be encouraged to come out to help identify what the priorities should be for the more immediate work plan.
A motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
Councilor Bradley, Councilor Kraft, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries. We get a couple of quick things. I guess we'll start with the mayor's report thing here. I keep it relatively brief. Had the opportunity to go to Housing First meeting last week, and the concept the concept there is that housing should be a priority for everyone, and that many communities have adopted a housing first concept, obviously under the agenda of not having homeless, so a lot of the folks involved in the program cannot pay for the housing themselves in their entirety. There's housing available for them, they contribute a portion of their income towards paying for the housing, but they have the appropriate supports to be able to have their own, apartment, home, what have you. It was quite interesting, we had all the communities from the Fraser Valley there. The one cautionary note that I spoke up on was that although this discussion is very good, we have to make sure that as municipal governments, we don't accept the financial responsibility for all these interesting problems, because of the provincial government, through lack of shortage of mental health resources available and rehab opportunities, so on and so forth, and the feds, there's huge responsibility that they're trying to download onto communities, and some communities are very effective at taking over these responsibilities, and of course, it's kind of leading the charge into a dismal direction, so it was very interesting. No final solutions, but it was very, very good for information's sake. I had the opportunity to deliver condolences on behalf of the community at the Joanne Mills celebration of life. I think many of you knew him personally. He was a very delightful young 8-year-old guy, and he unfortunately had a very tragic accident, as everyone has heard. So the family asked me to say a few words, which I did, and that was a little tough, emotional, because it's not every day you speak at a service like that. And of course, anytime anyone in the community passes, it's equally tragic, so I'm not picking and choosing here, but went to the memorial services of Hank DeMolder's wife, Carrie, and a very nice lady. I spoke with Mr. Korolowski, and we sent a flower pot on behalf of the district, because Erica Press, they do an amazing amount of things in the community. They donate a lot to different individuals and groups, and quite frankly, I have a hard time figuring out how they're still in business to give so much away, so I think that was very appropriate, and delivered best wishes at the service there. On a less somber note, I attended a regional library meeting. We're already talking budget and the good things that are happening there. Everyone seems to be in a big panic to do the 2% increase, which there's obviously a lot of merit to. But the problem that has occurred in library circles is a lot of the resources are based in the United States, and of course with our low Canadian dollar, the resources are actually much more expensive in many cases. So what I'm going to tastefully present is that we go 2.5% of the library budget. Of course, it's very early in that, but I think we have to keep our library current and vibrant, and not investing in materials acquisitions for the future appropriately is a bit of a slippery slope. Now, I'm just saying this initially. Now, there's been no final decision on the budget. I'm not seeking council direction on this yet. I just brought that up as a topic for thought and discussion, but I'm not binding council to a 2.5% library requisition increase. I just brought that up. Now, the other thing is, of course, the federal election, everyone knows the results, so that pleasing to some, not pleasing to others, but regardless, it's a done deal. So what I will, within the next week here, send out some letters. Thank you to the outgoing Prime Minister, welcome to the new Prime Minister, congratulate Mr. Strahl, and I believe we'll have some dealings with Mr. Sadhu as well, the MP from the Canyon riding. There'll probably be some natural crossover, so we can send him a congratulatory note. And one thing that I think maybe we can arm twist or find staff to do is, I think it's very important that we hit the ground running on the whole issue of federal government grants. Mr. Trudeau was very vocal on the amount of investment he would make on infrastructure, so I think it's fair that we should be the first ones at the lineup. I was gonna say something else, I will not use the term, lineup is a much better term, but it's important to get properly situated, and I think strategically as well, we are a riding which is quite equally divided from a political perspective, so I'm sure the government will not hold it against us that we have a conservative MLA with a sitting Liberal government. I think strategically they'll probably figure, hey, let's be nice to these people because they're kind of, you know, on edge in our direction anyway, so just cold hard politics, just saying the way it is. I think we have huge opportunities to seek out some federal programs as they come available and how they fit into our strategic priorities, of course, so. That is my version of a semi-short mayor's report. Start with Councillor Smith today.
Mine's short and brief. My last 2 weeks have been very slow in the council and things. Just an upcoming Brigade Days meeting, November 4th. I did get reelected as president, for Hope Brigade Days. That was from our last council meeting, other than that. That's all I have to say.
Mr. President.
Reappointed, yeah.
Were you voluntold?
Voluntold, yeah. Pretty much. That's good, I wanted to.
Congratulations. Obviously a job well done based on,
Yeah, and the priority setting and stuff like that for next year's. It's getting crazy already. So it's good. Really good.
okay, thank you very much. Councillor Dow?
Attended the Housing First meeting as well at UFB, and just for the record, I attended in my role as executive director, and then I did attend with the mayor in the mayor and council portion of it. However, no expense incurred to the taxpayer for myself to be part of that process. So just want to make that clear and noted in the minutes. And then also, we all know that we've had some issues with rats, and it's come to my attention around the downtown core, and just wondering if this is a true issue or what the story is. As I've heard that people want to start businesses up in the downtown, and then their buildings are rat infested, and there's some businesses that have closed down because of rats, and you know how rumor mills gossip and whatnot. So I'm just curious as to if this is true, how to investigate that, and how can we deal with the issue, I suppose, if that's my
As for the complaints, your worship, I'll hand it over to Don, who might be able to illustrate or illuminate us on how many complaints we received about the
Not
rat.
seen any. But not specifically with my desk, but I haven't seen any, like, come forward, my check.
I think of the recent demolition of a certain downtown house, hopefully.
Yeah.
Your worship, and municipalities can address the problem, but of course, it means applying resources to the problem, i.e. money. So currently, it's a Fraser FBRD health issue primarily, and if the district wants to address that, we could do things like loan traps, we could issue poison, we could hire someone or contract for rat eradication. There's a whole range of things, and I think that would take real council thought and deliberation. If the problem is significant enough, as mentioned by Councillor Dial, and then deliberate what resources, at what level are you willing to devote to that? Because there will be an opportunity cost if you don't grow the budget.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Stewart?
Okay, I'll start by apologizing for not being able to be here last Monday, or the previous Monday. My daughter was sent home from work and had trouble breathing, so I made the choice to stay with her. So I apologize.
A wise choice.
Yeah, I put in 19 years of an investment in that, I wanna keep it alive, so I wanna protect my investment. So, thank you, and I apologize for that, it's true. Okay, so, I attended the chamber meeting last Wednesday, and it was a public safety meeting. The new staff sergeant was there, Hope Citizens on Patrol Crime Prevention was there, and a new business that has come to town Protection Services. It's a security business. And so what happened was there was a presentation and they talked about crime stats, they talked about various ways that Citizens on Patrol is active in our community, how they survive on volunteers and donations. And the staff sergeant was there to answer a couple of questions, as well as Jackie Ripple, Constable Ripple was there as well. It was very, very fun to attend because it was a different crowd than I was used to. It was very public crowd, not a chamber crowd. So I really enjoyed myself, and just on a side note, I was listening to what Councillor Dowdle was saying about friendliness and the culture that we're trying to grow in our community. And so this is completely out of character, but Jason hasn't received a very warm welcome in our community, and I just think it's important that when people are going to put their butt on the line and open a business, that we try to help lift them up rather than take them down. So that's just my soapbox. So Jason Graff is the owner of the new business, BC Protection Services. And just so everyone knows that I was sent some information about his business, and I forwarded it to all of council.
Yeah.
Just, if I receive information, I like to be able to share it with everyone. Thank you, John, for teaching me that lesson. I like it. And so, welcome, Jason, from me for sure. Also, potholes. John, thank you very much. I wanted the public to know how speedy you were at following up with the requests I made to you. And thank you very much for taking care of that issue as quickly as you did. Appreciate that. The traffic lights, I've had a question about traffic lights at 3rd and Wallace. Apparently they begin flashing at about 7 p.m. and then they stop flashing again about midnight. And if you have information as to why that occurs, I would greatly appreciate it. Because in the middle of the night, there's a red light and there is not a soul around, but you sit at a red light for a while. So maybe that's, if you have any information, could you forward to that, and I can pass it on to the person who talked to me.
I can address that quickly now. The idea being that the cycle discontinues during the low hours, so if it's a 4-way stop, and generally traffic will move more quickly. But it shouldn't revert to a cycle at midnight, so I will look into that for you and we can get that sorted out.
I was just telling you, it was very weird, because you're sitting there and there's.
There's nobody, it's like,
Everyone hates it.
Just go. Well, and then what happens is